NASCAR Busch Series Racing on FX is brought to you by Stewart Busch Beer and Easy Drinking Busch Light. Busch, the proud sponsor of the NASCAR Busch Series.
A little bit of a traffic jam here at New Hampshire, but it's at the garage entrance as cars pulling out of this race at a kind of alarming rate. The 90, Phil Bonnefeld just slow in the backstretch. That is the backup car for Greg Biffle's team. Right here, Shane Neal trying to hold off the advances of Jay Sauter and the point-standing runner-up Jack Sprague.
Talk about the Craftsman Truck Series. Jay Sauter won a truck race here 2 or 3 years ago, driving for Richard Childress as well.
Jack Sprague won one last year.
Jack Sprague sitting there, he's second in the points, and Jason Keller, the points leader, behind the wall. Jack Sprague, one of only 3 drivers that has no DNFs in 2002, which would also include Stacy Compton and Jason Keller.
Both of whom have damaged race cars at present. Sprague is only 34 points away from retaking the lead. And with the attrition as high as it is, there's a good chance he'll do that today, even if he goes no further than halfway. Now, Keller's car is still being worked on behind the wall. The hood up and a lot of repair ongoing for Jason Keller. But for Bobby Hamilton Jr., he's just picking up right where he left off at Nashville.
At Richmond.
That was a while ago.
I mean, led 100
at Richmond last week.
Led 159 laps. Didn't look like anybody was going to catch him. Fred Winkie, they made that call to stay out. But once again, the motor did not blow on this race car, and he did not run out of fuel. He just was not picking up all that was available there. There were still 2 or 3 gallons in that fuel cell.
A little bit more of that story right there, Larry, is that Fred Winkie told me, he said he went and tested at Charlotte, and they actually pulled the fuel cell out of that car and threw it over close to the dumpster. He said, I wouldn't even mess with it. I was so mad at the end of that race. He's about wasted before I could ever go and really find out what happened to it. And they figured out what the problem was. It was a pickup issue. Got that replaced, and they know today that they can go the distance if they need to.
You know, look at Shane Neal right there in the 47 car. Talk to Jerry Kent and his crew chief. You heard Dick Bergman talk about the video games this morning, and Jerry said he came by the shop earlier this week. He said, I'm going to be good at Loudon this week. Jerry said, how you know that? You've never even seen the place. He said, I've got it down pat on my video game. He said, by the way, Jerry, are we going to St. Louis and test? Jerry said, I don't know why. He says, I'm nervous. I don't have that on my video.
Have to add that to the package, I guess. Now back in the garage area, a lot of work going on. Here's Matt.
Mike, a disappointing day for Martin Truex Jr. The 22-year-old had high hopes. New Hampshire, the site of his first Busch North win, hoping for a good opportunity today here in the #1 car. But Johnny Allen, the car chief, told me a broken left front rotor is the culprit. They're going to try to fix it and see if they can get him back out just to gain some more Busch Series experience here. But a disappointing day nonetheless.
Now to update that story from last Friday night at Richmond, where Jimmy Spencer peeled out of the pits and tore the rear end loose from the rear spring. NASCAR officials had a sharp look over that car after that happened.
Yeah, what it did, it broke one of the U-boats that holds the rear end in place on the trailing arm, and what they found after further investigating is that U-boat had actually been drilled out, which is not legal, and unfortunately crew chief Mark Reno was fined this past week for a rule infraction about the drilled out U-boat.
Hollowed out to save weight, and instead of they saved a couple of, maybe they saved a half a pound, but what it cost them, $20-some thousand maybe.
Exactly, and that's the reason why NASCAR doesn't allow that. It's a good reason why they do not allow you to drill anything as far as the safety issue is concerned.
No Swiss cheese allowed.
No.
This is a battle right here for 5th. Ron Hornaday Jr. in the 26 car. Randy LaJoy at 7. Heard him talk in his pre-race interview. They tested Nazareth with this car. This is a brand new race car. The hope should be after this week, going to Nazareth next week, is to run this car there as well. Very similar racetrack.
Coming up on quarter distance at Loudon, Bobby Hamilton Jr. firmly in the lead, 2.4 seconds over Todd Bodine. Here are the point standings for the NASCAR Busch Series, brought to you by Rent-A-Center. As they stand right at this moment, Jack Sprague would take over the point lead. Welcome back to Loudon. Bobby Hamilton Jr. just putting a lap on Larry Foyt here at the 50-lap mark. Biffle and Bodine change at second place. Greg Biffle has passed Todd Bodine for second. So it's Hamilton, Biffle, Bodine. McMurray holds on to 4th, and Randy LaJoie has moved up to 5th. So let's show you that change for 2nd place.
It's a little bit like what Jeff Burton said earlier. He was able to get his nose down underneath Todd Bodine right there in the middle of that corner and make the pass.
And Todd Bodine saw that Biffle was a little bit quicker, and he just rolled out of the throttle earlier, getting down in turn 1, let Biffle go ahead. No sense in pushing the envelope here 1/4 of the way through this race. Biffle finished 11th in this race last year on his Busch Series race here, but boy, he's been good in the Craftsman Truck Series, a 2nd and 2/4.
You see the 31 just in front of Greg Biffle. David Green is back on track, and Jason Keller has returned to the Speedway as well.
I mean, 52 laps in this race, you can hear Biffle when we go to his in-car. You almost have to drive this thing with the throttle pedal as much as you do the steering wheel. You can't just mat it off the corner. You think it's ready to bite, you hit the throttle, it don't. You back and forth, driving it with that throttle pedal just as much.
And as well as the bottom of your pants, you might say, seat of your pants, you start feeling that car hook up, you give a little more throttle. If you feel like kind of come loose, you've got to roll back out of it.
That's how I was feeling last night. That's the reason I wasn't matting it off the corner.
You really helped that guy, because I know he won the race after you got out of it, so you must have done give him a lot of good input.
I'd give anybody confidence.
Shane Neal trying to hold off Jay Sauter and Jack Sprague.
Battle for 8th.
Phil Bonnefeld's gone to the garage. That's Sprague's, excuse me, that's Biffle's backup car. As we hit 54 laps. Hamilton Jr. now that Biffle's in 2nd place, his lead is diminishing. Greg Biffle has cut it down to 1.4 seconds and continues to close in on the leader. Only one caution so far, a minor one, but on the restart, things got really jumbled up. Welcome back to Loudon. 59 laps have been completed. Inside Winston Cup Monday night at 7 on Speed Channel, and Trackside live from Lowe's Motor Speedway in Charlotte. That's Friday night at 10 p.m. on the Speed Channel with Darrell, Larry, Jeff, and Steve Burns to preview the All-Star Racing on Saturday. Bobby Hamilton Jr. has opened it up to 2.3 seconds on Greg Biffle and Todd Bodine. And let me correct myself. Phil Bonnefeld's car was painted a mirror image of Greg Biffle's, but a different sponsor, different make. Those were not team cars. Sorry, Phil. Now, in the ongoing grudge between the Hollywood Hotel and the NASCAR on Fox pit crew, Jeff Hammond scored a big one for the hotel last night with his win in the Cane and Coups. But Dick Berggren is going to enlist some support for his side.
Well, I'll tell you what, we are ready to join the Marines here, because Hamilton is not only sponsored by the Marines, his pit is full of Marines. There's a full half dozen of them here. Kyle Power, the rear tire changer, is wearing a Marine helmet up on the box right now. Captain Daniel Kreider, Major Andrew Smith watching. Crew Chief Fred Wanke has given up his box so the Marines could be here. These guys gave out 1,000 carnations to 1,000 moms who showed up here at the New Hampshire Speedway as they walked their way on in. To Matt Yoakum.
Dick, in the last lap, Jack Sprague just climbed from 10th to 9th. I stopped by his car this morning. His crew chief, Dennis Conner, told me, I said, how many changes are you guys going to make for today? He said, let me pull out the piece of paper and show you. He goes, you have to count them up. I counted, it was 19. While standing there, a crew member walked up. Dennis said, add 2 more. He said, we have just flat missed it. We're surprised, because it really felt like with our truck experience and success here, we would be better, but they're still learning the nuances of Busch Series racing versus Truck Series racing. But keep in mind, Sprague is due, still searching for his first career Busch Series win.
He sits 9th right now, Matt, challenging for 8th to the inside of Shane Meal. Meal a little higher up the racetrack, but Sprague so far unable to find his way by. Jay Sauter with them, and then Kevin Grubb a little further back.
You know, I've been clocking our 2 leaders here the last few laps. Bobby Hamilton Jr. in the 25, Greg Biffle in the 60. Each lap, Bobby Hamilton Jr. is about a 10th quicker than Greg Biffle when they're in clean traffic. But still here, 65 laps into this race on these tires, they're running around 30 flat. That says a lot for the Goodyear tire. They only qualified at like 29.43 Shane Mills' pole speed. This is where it gets tricky. This is where we talk about the young guys really having to show patience right here as Bobby Hamilton Jr. starts coming up on this lap traffic. You see Scott Wimmer in a 23 car, but he's picking them up laying down because Scott Wimmer is in the 21st position.
And one thing I'd like to add right here, Larry, is that when you say something like that, that's one thing I think Bobby Hamilton Jr. has improved upon since a year ago. A year ago, at this time, he was like 20th in the point position. This year, he's up to 10th. That's an improvement of 10 positions. So that tells you right quick that the combination of Fred Wonky as well as Bobby Hamilton Jr. and the Team Marine car was really working well for him.
I think Bobby Hamilton Jr. needed somebody like Fred Wanke. Has that experience, somebody that'll believe in him, but yet he'll believe in Fred Wanke.
What was neat about that race last Friday night at Richmond was it had 3 sure winners. First off, nobody could catch Ward Burton. Then nobody could touch Jimmy Spencer, and he broke. And then nobody could touch Bobby Hamilton, and none of them won it.
And it was almost the same way in the Winston Cup race. Tony Raines in the 33 car, he's on pit road. Matt Yoakum, what's the problem?
Larry, they were hoping to stretch it out at least 20 more laps before they pitted. Apparently, Tony reported in that he had a severe vibration on his right rear. They're going to try to hold off until a caution. He worked from 27th all the way up to 15th, but then they finally decided they couldn't hold out any longer and pitted. He may need to use some of the sponsor later today.
There's no question this race right now has that green flag look to it, so we could definitely see some strategy coming out here as we approached lap 100. Some teams saying they can go it on one stop.
Wow. We've only had one caution. It was a brief one at lap 3 when Brian Weber spun into the wall by himself, but 4 cars got banged up on the restart, including our pole sitter, or point leader rather. We'll be right back.